They say the worst part isn't the fall, it's what comes after the landing. You've just had what people call an ego death. Maybe it came through a spiritual awakening. Maybe it cracked you open during a crisis, a breakup, a psychedelic trip, or years of internal struggle that finally reached the surface. However it happened, you felt it. Your old self, the identity you clung to for so long, collapsed. It's gone. And for a moment, it was peaceful, even freeing. But now you're stuck in the silence. No goals, no drive, no clear self to fight for. Just this empty space where you used to be. And that's where most people get lost. We think enlightenment means glowing forever in some cosmic bliss. But the reality is, it is messy, disorienting. It can leave you lying on the floor of your life, trying to remember why anything even matters anymore. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who reshaped how we understand the human psyche, understood this part better than most. He called it the death of the persona. When the mask we wear for society falls away, and we see how much of our life was scripted by fear, conditioning, ego, and approval-seeking. But he also believed that this collapse wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a birth of something far more real than the persona ever was. But how do you move from that hollow, post-ego death phase into inspired, meaningful action? How do you rebuild without faking it again? That's what we're going to explore in this video. And trust me, it's not about becoming a productivity machine. It's about something much deeper. How to tap into soul-level motivation, the kind that isn't tied to external validation or identity, but to truth. And Carl Jung left us some powerful clues. So stay with me until the end, because we're going to flip the script on how you think about motivation, purpose, and healing after ego death. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll have a new framework for moving forward. Not back to your old self, but toward the version of you that was hiding underneath it all along. So here's where most people end up after ego death. In the void. Not depression exactly, not apathy. It's more like nothing sticks. The things you used to chase, success, popularity, being somebody, don't feel real anymore. Goals feel hollow. Affirmations feel fake. Vision boards? They gather dust. You don't lack motivation. You lack a self to be motivated for. Jung said this is the point where we either shrink back into an old identity, numb ourselves, reattach to shallow goals, or we begin the process of what he called individuation. That's the slow, sometimes painful path of integrating the unconscious, discovering the self, with a capital S, and creating a life not from ego, but in alignment with soul. He wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. This is the beginning of your new direction, not by force, but by listening. But let's be real, this stage feels confusing as hell. You're not lazy, you're recalibrating. You're becoming aware of how much of your life was built on survival, not sovereignty. So if you're sitting in that space right now, where nothing feels urgent and the old ambitions don't light you up, don't panic. You're not lost, you're transitioning. Carl Jung didn't believe the unconscious would abandon you. He believed it would send messages, symbols, dreams, synchronicities, quiet impulses to guide you toward your next chapter. But you have to stay open. The new self can't be forced, but it will emerge. Before we continue, if you're someone who loves expanding your mind and exploring the deeper layers of life, make sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom to never miss a moment of clarity, insight, and soul-aligned truth. So you've hit the void, your post-ego death, floating in that weird space where the old motivations don't work and the new ones haven't quite shown up yet. Let's be honest, this part is weirdly exhausting. You're not doing much, but you feel drained. You want to move, create, build something meaningful, but it's like your body and mind just won't sync up. Everything feels slow, heavy, pointless. Now here's the paradox. What if the thing holding you in that stuck place isn't the emotion itself, but your resistance to it? I know, it sounds backwards. But every time you feel tired and beat yourself up for it, you're not resting, you're wrestling. You're burning mental energy trying to be in a different state than the one you're in. And that resistance and inner argument is draining you. Not the tiredness, but the fight against the tiredness. Carl Jung understood this dynamic well. He said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." That wasn't just metaphorical. He was talking about the human shadow, the part of ourselves we repress, judge, and avoid. When we resist what's inside us, we split from ourselves. We create internal conflict. We leak energy trying to pretend we're fine. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you let yourself be tired, fully, just surrender to it? What happens when, instead of shaming your lack of motivation, you sit with it, breathe with it, and listen to it? You begin to feel what's underneath. And when you stop resisting the so-called negative state, when you allow it to exist without judgment, you create space for it to move. That's when things begin to shift. Let's break that down in real-life moment. You're lying in bed. Nothing sounds exciting. Your inner critic kicks in. You're wasting time. You should get up and do something. Why are you like this? But what if instead of spiraling into shame, you said, "I'm feeling lazy right now. That's okay. I'm going to feel it and not try to escape it." What you'll find is that your body relaxes. The tight grip in your body loosens. Your mind softens. And maybe, not always instantly, an hour later, or even 10 minutes later, something stirs. A little spark, a curious thought, a small urge to move, or create, or go for a walk. That's not forced motivation, that's organic momentum. Because the deeper truth is, emotions aren't good or bad. From a higher state of consciousness, they're just energy. Energy waiting to move, to be expressed, to complete their cycle. Sadness isn't weakness. It's the body processing grief, loss, or a need for release. Anger isn't evil. It's often unspoken truth trying to protect your boundaries. And fear is your nervous system trying to keep you safe. Maybe outdated, but still trying. Children know this. Just watch them. When they're sad, they cry, loudly. Then they're done. When they're angry, they scream it out, and 5 minutes later, they're playing again like nothing happened. That's because they don't have beliefs about their emotions. They don't judge them. They just feel them, until we teach them not to. We teach them that good boys don't cry. Anger is bad. Calm down. Be strong. Don't be lazy. And slowly, they begin to suppress. That suppression creates a shadow, the unconscious part of our psyche that Jung spent his life studying. It's full of every emotion, impulse, truth, and desire we've ever judged or disowned. And your real power, it lives in that shadow. Your creativity, passion, boldness, authenticity, all of it is buried beneath the layers of shoulds and shouldn'ts. So if you're feeling unmotivated, tired, moody, uninspired, that's good. That's your fuel. You don't need to fix it. You need to feel it. And when you do, it transforms. And here's something surprisingly powerful. Just playing with the paradox can ignite creativity. Let yourself toy with the idea. What if my laziness was my muse? What if you wrote a poem called Fueled by Laziness, or an essay titled The Productive Power of Doing Nothing? What if your sadness became The Water That Softens Stone? What if your fear inspired a story called The Brave Coward? Just imagine how artistically rich that sounds. Your mind loves a twist. It loves contradiction. It loves when something doesn't quite fit, because that's where the tension lives. And from that tension, new meaning can be born. Once you flip the label, your imagination lights up. It stops trying to escape the emotion and starts dancing with it, This is creativity at its core. Not the polished Instagram version, but the raw, real kind that comes straight from the soul. Jung would say, this is your unconscious coming online, offering symbols, language, and metaphor to help you express what the rational mind can't. So next time you feel off, don't fight it. Write, paint, or speak from it. Let the paradox be the punchline. Your resistance isn't your enemy, it's your untapped artist. And your shadow? It's holding the paintbrush. So by now, you've probably realized something most people never get to. The path forward after ego death isn't about pushing harder, it's about listening deeper. And that brings us to one of Carl Jung's most powerful, yet most misunderstood concepts, the self. Not your job title, not your Instagram bio, not even your personality type. Jung's self, with a capital S, is the totality of who you are. It's your soul's blueprint. It includes your conscious mind and your shadow, your wounds and your potential. It's not just who you are today, it's who you were always meant to be. The self wants to guide you. It wants to grow, evolve, express, and create through you. It sends messages all the time, dreams that feel like clues, strange synchronicities, random urges to write or move or call someone, feelings that don't make logical sense, but somehow feel true. But we miss it because we're trained to only trust logic, only trust action, only trust results. Meanwhile, motivation from the self doesn't come from pressure. It comes from resonance, from noticing what feels real, even if it's quiet, from following the gentle tug, not the loud demand. And look, there's a reason this is so hard. There's a reason most people avoid their shadow. It's not because they're weak. It's because feeling, really feeling, can feel like losing control. And losing control feels like losing your ground. You know you have to go to work tomorrow, run your business, show up for your kids and your partner, keep functioning. So of course you tighten up, you suppress, you armor yourself with logic and routines and a fake smile, because you're afraid that if you let go, even for a second, your whole familiar life will crash. That's not failure, that's survival. And it's totally valid. But here's the deeper truth. Feeling your sadness, your tiredness, your anger, it doesn't destroy your life. It grounds you in it. Because beneath all that tension is your real self, waiting to be heard. Let's make this real. You've been sitting in the void, letting yourself feel, not resisting. And one afternoon, this strange urge pops up. You suddenly want to rearrange your room, or go for a walk, or open a Google Doc and type out a few sentences that don't even make sense yet. You almost dismiss it. You think, that's silly, what's the point? But it feels light, expansive. That's the self-talking. Follow it. Jung believed this kind of symbolic, non-linear intelligence is where the gold lives. He called it the transcendent function, the bridge between the conscious and unconscious. When you allow both voices to speak, something new emerges, a direction that isn't forced, but revealed. But yeah, it's hard to trust that, especially in a culture that treats rest like weakness, intuition like fluff, and productivity as the ultimate sign of worth. You were raised in that system, so of course you doubt yourself. Of course you feel like doing nothing is dangerous, like you'll fall behind, like if you don't figure it all out right now, you'll stay stuck forever. But the truth is, the soul doesn't run on deadlines. It runs on alignment. And when you start honoring your energy, listening to your deeper impulses, making space for feeling instead of constantly fixing, something shifts, slowly, then suddenly. You start wanting to move again, not because you should, but because it feels meaningful. You start writing, not to be productive, but to express something real. You reconnect, not to perform, but to relate, authentically. And this is when the magic begins. Motivation stops being something you chase and starts being something you channel. You become a vessel for the self, for life itself, for that inner artist, inventor, content creator, healer, teacher, builder, Whatever it is that's been hiding under the rubble of who you thought you had to be. Ask yourself, what has myself been trying to say lately? And if you don't know the answer, good. That means you're listening. And now, you might be wondering, okay, but what do I do with all of this? Because life is still happening. Bills still exist. The world doesn't pause just because you've gone through a spiritual death and started waking up to your truth. And this is where we bring it full circle. Because here's the truth that most spiritual bypassing skips over. You still have an ego, and that's okay. Carl Jung never said the ego was the enemy. In fact, he believed the goal wasn't to kill the ego. It was to integrate it, to bring it into alignment with the self. Your ego is your interface. It's how you operate in the world. It helps you make decisions, set boundaries, protect yourself when needed. It only becomes a problem when it starts pretending it's all there is, when it disconnects from the deeper source. So the path isn't about choosing between soul and structure. It's about letting your structure serve your soul. And this is where motivation takes on a whole new flavor. You're not moving just to achieve. You're not building out of fear of falling behind. You're creating because you have something to say, something to give, something that's been living inside you, waiting for space. So yes, start small. Let your routines be soulful. Let your work have rhythm. Let your creativity have cycles. Take care of your body because you love it, not because it's a productivity machine. Let your calendar have grace. Let your mornings be soft, if that's what you need. Let your evenings be sacred. And when resistance shows up again, as it will, don't fight it. Ask gently, what are you trying to tell me? Because now you know how to hear the answer. You've met the part of you that doesn't need to hustle to matter. You've begun to understand how sadness, laziness, even fear are not blocks. They're messengers. They carry the keys to your next poem, your next idea, your next direction. This is the gift of ego death. It strips away everything false so that what's true can finally speak. And when you let that truth shape your actions, when you let your shadow, your stillness, your paradoxes inform how you move, how you show up, how you serve, you become whole. You stop performing and start expressing. You stop pushing and start aligning. You stop chasing life and start living it, fully, wildly, softly, in all its beautiful contradiction. That's not just motivation, that's embodiment. That's the self, alive in the world. And if you've made it this far, you might already feel it, that quiet knowing, that shift. It's not loud, not flashy, and not viral, but it's real, and that's enough. If this spoke to you, if you felt even a tiny shift while watching, hit that subscribe button and join a space for deep thinkers, soul seekers, and those who are done pretending. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell, what part of this landed for you the most? Or where are you right now in your own process of awakening? Your story matters, and you never know who it might help.